Okay, we are super excited about today's guests. I say that with a plural. So little backstory. We have a faithful friend who's also adopted, and he recommended, with one of our guests, he spoke of her, and we friended her, and she started listening to our podcast. And then we found out she was doing a documentary about none other than the Primal Wound. So everyone who listens to our podcast knows we have manifested this day. So I'm really excited to introduce Rebecca Autumn Sansom and Nancy Verrier.
Woo-hoo.
Here we are, finally.
Yes. So special to be part of a manifestation.
It's amazing when you can actually see a manifestation happen, like actually, wow, that came to fruition.
Yeah, it was our friend Eric Davis, and he's like,
David, yeah.
Eric David, and he's like, you have to know about Rebecca and this documentary she's making about Nancy. And we're like, this is crazy. This is what we've been wanting. So we're just thrilled to have you both.
Eric and I went to the same college.
Oh.
And had the same journalism professor, Dr. C. And different years, crazy. But isn't that crazy? So I don't know how y'all know him, because I don't actually know him.
We know him through an elementary school. Our kids were all in elementary school together. And
although his was a lot younger than ours.
His was a lot younger, and we don't know him well, but it's through the Facebook group in our community. And then he loved our podcast right at the beginning. So the Primal Wound changed his life. He's actually meeting his birth mother this week.
He did yesterday.
He met her, right?
Yes.
So,
wow. I think I commented on that because wow.
So this is all kind of just because, anyway.
Yeah. It's serendipitous. The timing with all of these connections that are happening now for me in the movie and everything is so serendipitous. It's like we're in the flow of something bigger.
Yes. Yes.
And we wanted to ask you about the movie. So how did you and Nancy connect and get together for this documentary? And tell us a little bit about the documentary.
Well, I feel like I had a filmmaker friend say I should document my adoption story forever, and I never wanted to. And then in my 20s, I think 3 different adoptees around the world, I would be in different places. I think England, would ask me if I'd read The Primal Wound. And I was like, I don't know, no. And then finally, the 3rd random one the same year, somebody asks you, have you read The Primal Wound? And then I'm like, okay, I will read this book. And yeah, I think everybody, y'all, it changed my life. And that was before I met Jill, but I always had this in my head that I should do a documentary about my story.
That's something I wanted to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really didn't want to. And then when I was pregnant with Frankie Joe, and in Northern California, the thought would not go away. And I had been in reunion with Jill, and it turned out that she was going to come to the birth. Wow. And I was Googling if anyone had made a documentary about the Primal Wound, and realized no one had, and felt led to keep investigating. Realized that Nancy lived 45 minutes away from me in the Bay Area.
Wow.
And decided to reach out. But
evidently you're very accessible, Nancy, because I heard this from another guy. He met you when he was in Northern California.
Yeah, I know. I've had
several people
come to my house, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah, because now people are like, how do you know Nancy? And I'm like, she's not that hard to get to, actually.
I'm trying to remember who gave me a knitted pot holder, because I really want another one of those, and I can't remember who gave it to me.
Shout out if any listener gave a pot holder.
Yeah. What does it look like? What is this pot holder?
So you reached out and you said, I'm going to do this documentary. Do you, and you were just open to it, Nancy?
Sure.
Well, because you don't do interviews, so it was a little
people coming to my house. I don't know for how long and for what reasons, really. I mean, A lot of
But
people
you
have
weren't
done it.
doing press at the time. So it did take, like, you had to get to know me, you know? It took like 6 months of us getting to know each other. And then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think we built up a rapport that was trustworthy, you know?
Right.
Well, yeah, the things that I don't trust are newspapers because they pick and choose what they put in there and the context in which they put it. And it's not always very accurate. I never believe much
And
of what I
you've
read in
been
the newspaper.
misquoted. Yeah.
Well, they just mix everything up so that it doesn't flow the way you said it in the first place. But anyway,
We were
yes.
thinking this when we've done the chapter reviews of the Primal Wound, that you probably touched on a lot of chords with a lot of people that maybe struck. I mean, I'm a little bit like Rebecca. Sarah told me we need to read the Primal Wound, and I have heard about it. I owned it at one time, and I never wanted to read it. I didn't want to
Yeah.
know. I didn't want to
Yeah.
go
No,
down
I
that road.
understand that. I
Yeah.
understand that.
And once you start reading it, it's like, wow.
I wish I had read it years ago. I think
Me
it would
too.
have changed my interactions with my birth mother. I've talked about this in my own journey in our podcast. Is I
Right.
was so defensive that
Yes.
and would not let her in.
Mm.
And then she died before I even really had the opportunity. Like, I stayed in her life and stayed in reunion with her, but I always had a wall up. And now, knowing what I know from the Primal Wound, I wish I'd found it 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
then-
for our
yeah.
adopted parents too. I mean, both my parents have passed recently. We're actually having their burial coming up, and I'm floored that, like, I wish I had so much more of this information to talk to my mom about. And my biological mother has passed away long ago, but I know my biological family, and I would have been more open. I was like, Sarah, I'm very like, nope, no, now I'm like, wow, all these things, ding, 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 are going off. And I'm really glad we picked it up. And it's really kind of been a rebirth with a lot of people are like, have read it and are reading it again or writing to us. We get emails and texts about our conversations that we have just between Sarah and I are conversations some adoptees have never had with anybody. And now we're getting mail and notes from all over the world, people saying, this is so huge for us, for me to hear this. And
That's good to know. Yeah, that's good to know.
it really
No,
is.
it's evergreen. It's like so timely.
Yeah.
Still timeless. Yeah.
It is.
Book,
It does seem to be that there is something going on out there now in the universe with adoption, because there's so many books that are coming out. There's also, like, Steve Inskeep from NPR had a book coming out about his own adoption. I mean, there's a lot of it. I mean, maybe it's always timely, but people are definitely, I think, being more open about it and trying to change the narrative.
And I started this in 2017, and that's when I think a lot started too. I don't know exactly when y'all started this, but I feel like the idea. But
I wonder if it's a lot of us grew up
building, like, cumulatively. Yeah. All of that energy and the era of reckonings, not just with adoption, but it's just interesting time.
Yes. Kind of
And
Age of Aquarius type of.
Feel like something could happen.
I wrote that first book because I'd given a talk at, I think it was AAC, American Adoption Congress. And I titled it The Primal Wound, The Legacy of the Adopted Child, I think is what I titled it. And they were so interested in that because nobody had ever really said things like that, And so then that's when they said to me after I gave my talk, you really need to write a book because we need to highlight what you're saying and get people to understand more about what this whole thing is like for all parts of the triad. And so anyway, that was in 1991, I think. And so the book came out in 93, and I self-published because I didn't want any editors to change what I was saying.
Yes.
But
we like that because we always say it's very right on. Like, the facts are right there.
And then to like bring it into a movie format, I wanted to do that just so it would get to more people. And then of course we couldn't put everything in the movie, but I hope people buy the book and read it after seeing the movie.
Yeah.
And it's not a movie version of the book, obviously, but it's like, yeah. So I want to be clear about that too.
Some people would rather watch a movie than read a book.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
that's my medium. I love documentaries. So I love putting, academic journals and things that a lot of people wouldn't read into movie form.
Yeah. And that's good because then they get the information.
Yeah. And also I thought you needed a tribute, Nancy.
Yes.
For doing all the work you've done.
Yes.
For adoptees. Like Nancy's really dedicated a lot of her life to this cause. And I personally, Nancy, you already know this, but like, a lot of adoptees have a problem with the fact that you're not an adoptee and want to,
I'm sorry,
you know,
adoptees have a problem with that.
And I am like, oh yeah. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
No.
I didn't know there was scandals around the book.
oh yes.
I knew there was scandal around the book that people didn't want to know about.
Right. That's what
they just
I
want to, yeah.
Well,
yeah. And I don't know.
They don't want to think that anybody but another adoptee can understand it. That's what. Yeah. But I've had so many adoptees tell me the opposite, you know, that they're so glad that
and that's
I could put into words what they didn't have words for.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I'm out here like I'm your publicist, Nancy.
As are we.
Trying to drag you. I'm like, no, he's done way more good. It doesn't matter. Like, I get what you're saying. And yes, we need to read adoptee authored books about this. But what Nancy did is important, powerful. She was the catalyst. She was able to put into words that I don't know if an adoptee could have written the Primal Wound. Would we have ever been able to?
I don't think so.
I mean, Betty Jean Lifton.
I don't think so.
And like, that's why the movie is dedicated to Betty Jean Lifton. And Nancy knew her.
Oh yeah.
But something about
the give our listeners some background, because right now we're just kind of talking amongst ourselves, but we like some listeners would love to know what you're referring to.
Well, Nancy, you want to intro Betty? Yeah.
I forget how. Wait a minute, somebody's trying to get in touch with me. What am I going to do? Decline? This is. No.
Oh, there we go.
Now now you're back. Okay.
We have editors too.
Okay. Well, yeah, BJ Lifton was, gosh, I've known her for a very long time. And of course, you know, her book was one of the ones that inspired me to write, because her book was the first one I read, I think, about adoption. And then I met her and you know, and we always had such a good time together. I mean, we laughed so much. I told you we were with David, what's his name? David. I'm always forgetting people's names.
Kirshner?
But anyway,
I think, was it Kirshner?
We were having dinner. Yeah. We were having dinner in New York, and BJ and I were laughing and laughing and laughing. And Dave would say, "What? You guys are just crazy when you're together," you know. That's true. We were. But anyway, I didn't know that was going to be the last time I'd seen her. She didn't seem sick at all to me, but it wasn't very long after that she passed away. And I was so glad to have had that last time with her, because she and I always liked to get together, but you know, she lived on one side of this country and I lived on the other side. So it wasn't always easy to get together. But
and so for our listener who doesn't know, who is she? Who was she?
She was an adoptee, an author, an activist. She wrote Journey of the Adopted Self, Twice Born, Lost and Found, The Adoption Experience.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was Journey of the Adopted Self that really inspired me too, because I thought that was a very, very good book, and could make people understand more about what adoption was all about. But yeah, so we saw each other at these AAC conferences and things like that. but, and just always had a good time when we were together. So, so I was.
And so the
very glad.
documentary is dedicated to her as well.
Yes.
Yes,
Excellent.
yeah. As I said,
And-
she was one of the first ones besides, okay, now I can't remember the name of the other person that was even before her, but wasn't as well known. Do you know who that was?
I don't know. I might, but I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, this is where my name memory is not very good. But
And when you were-
I have it in my book somewhere. I have her name.
Yeah.
When you were writing The Primal Wound, how old was your daughter at the time? Your adopted daughter?
Let's see, when I wrote it, well, let's see, she was born in 1969. So what would that make her?
Big,
23. She was,
like 32,
yeah,
33.
she was in her 30s.
Yeah.
She's in her 30s.
Yeah.
And Giselle, that's her name, Giselle.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
because it's been big for Sarah and I to read, your feelings as a mother when you're tackling all of this too. And how did she feel? Like how I always wondered about that. Like, how did she feel about The Primal Wound?
Well, I think both my daughters probably would rather not have so much written about the whole thing, the whole, or about themselves, I guess. So, but I think that it does help other people a lot to find out more about how they, what one person's experience is and what
Yeah.
other people's experiences are. And of course, my daughters, one is adopted, one is not. So I
Right.
have both those experiences. And it's interesting to me, one of the things that I notice is having to do with DNA and all of that kind of thing, and how, we didn't know much about that
Mhm.
until what? The end of the 90s or something. I mean,
Yeah, really
it hasn't
recent.
been very long at all. And but it's very interesting because I think that one of the ways that we know each other is through seeing ourselves reflected in our children and our parents and in our families. And it's interesting to have someone that isn't reflecting that same kind of energy or anything. And it's I don't know, to me it was refreshing to have a child who was very different, in the energy and so forth. And it really inspired me more because it made me grow, having not just having someone reflecting me, but I just think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
So-
I have Sarah and I both have that. I have, my brother is not adopted and I am adopted, and she has two
Mhm.
siblings who are not adopted, and she and her other brother are both adopted. So we've been getting into that whole, how is it for the whole family situation?
Right.
The siblings, we're going to have a guest on who is a sibling, and all the different perspectives, because it's not even really just a triad, is it? I mean, it's really a
Mm.
bigger
Yeah,
Constellation. I like that word.
a constellation.
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And it does affect everybody, it affects everybody. And so, yeah, it's good to hear from, I'll be glad to hear from some of these other people that are going to be on too.
You know what I've found, what again, I can't believe I only just found the book, but
I know.
because we just didn't really talk much about it
Mhm.
in my family, but except that you were adopted and we wanted you. But the statistic about the juvenile halls, rehabs, and all that,
Yeah.
how I forgot exactly what the statistic was, that 30 to 40% of the people in those are adopted people, or I don't even know if you remember this piece of it, but that just really struck out with me, because all the bad things that traumatic things that an adopted could have done, I did. I was in juvenile hall, I did run away, I had all sorts of things. So it really, I always just thought, I'm a freak, I'm the bad kid. And,
Yes.
now I know, I'm in my 50s and just read that. And it just was mind boggling to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because, if you have the same kind of DNA, then you notice things about, things about people just because that's part of you. And,
Yes.
and when you don't, it's like you have to figure it all out all the time. And I keep thinking about that, when my daughter was a little girl, and thinking, I didn't know, I didn't think about this then,
No.
but I started thinking about it later. She had to learn everything from scratch, she had to figure out the family and everything, because it wasn't something that she could see in herself that was like the rest of the family. And
We got into a lot of that about the adaptability. Like Sarah and I are big adapters. I'm sure Rebecca was the same. You can,
yes,
you can learn a situation and be in it, even though you're not part of it inside quickly, which can cause problems to you. As Sarah said in our last episode, she could be a chameleon, go from group to group. And I was trying to glam on, where do I fit? And you don't want to disrupt anything at home with the family and say anything, because then people kind of go, well, we want you, you're adopted. And then you're like, okay, so you're just quiet about it, and
I remember when I talked to my daughter's birth mom for the first time, and we were talking on the telephone, and I said, well, I feel as if I really know you because I've been living with your daughter for 25 years.
Oh,
that's a nice thing to say. That's wow.
Yeah. So
yeah, Nancy, you should talk about how you decided to make that a priority and find her.
Yeah, we don't know anything about that.
I didn't really. Yeah, I did. Well, I guess I roundabout way found her. I did want her. I wanted my daughter to find her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I know that adoptees sometimes say, well, I'm not going to find her. She gave me away or whatever, but I know so many birth mothers, and it's not like they really wanted to give their kids away or anything like that most of the time. And so I was all for them meeting each other. And when she came back from meeting her, she said, Mom, 25 years is a long time to be without your mom. And I thought that, yeah, I'm so glad that they at least got together then, And so they've been together for over 25 years since then. So
they're still in reunion.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't see her as much as I used to. She lives in another state, so it's not like we are next door or something, but I really respect her a great deal, and she wrote me a very nice letter saying that she really appreciated how I was a mother to her daughter. And I said, well, part of that has to do with the DNA, and I'm really happy that you were her mother too. So we kind of bonded on that, I think. So anyway.
That's huge. I got married a few years ago, and some of my biological family came to my wedding and met my mom right before she passed away. And so it wasn't my biological mom, because she has already passed away. And it was a really interesting thing. I'm in a wedding, and you're getting married, and you're distracted and with your friends, but I'm watching across the thing as they're talking, thinking, I can't believe they're talking. Like they're all, and I'd watch my brother, because he's looking at my cousins like, wow, they kind of do look like my sister, this whole bizarre situation. And I remember that they had a conversation where my biological aunt said, we're just so grateful you're her mother. And then my mom had it must have been crazy for my mom to meet them and just see where I'm, who I was for her. She said it was a really deep moment for her. And we didn't get to talk that much about it, but she had some illness after and died. But I was so glad that happened. Just
yes.
Wow.
a little bit.
Yeah.
It was small, but it was big,
Yeah. So healing too.
It is healing.
Yeah, I think so too.
And Sarah got to meet her biological mom before she passed away. And it's like,
I had years, I think, with them. I'm still in touch with my sisters. But that whole other story. We've already, I don't want to be repetitive to our listeners.
Yeah.
I want to know, so you get together, Rebecca, I'm going back to like the origins of the documentary, because you get together and that then you just miraculously film it. And then what's the next step? Like what?
I know, it just kept like happening. So I was in my third trimester, and then Jill came to the birth, and we had this compelling setting because I was induced. So we were in the, labor and delivery room, and I was just not doing much for 10 hours. But I brought the camera. So that whole 3 weeks, and she was there for 3 weeks. So we had a lot of downtime, and we just started filming, and she was so generous with like telling the story, even though it's really raw and, hard. It was a lot of hard work for, I think, both of us emotionally. But then after Nancy said yes, and that interview happened, it was like, okay, this is a thing, it's happening. My boss at the time was telling me about her childhood friend that was documenting on Facebook her reunion story with her birth mother. And it was harrowing and dramatic. And I was like, where did she live? And of course, nearby. She was like willing to come. She's like, I'll be there tomorrow, And
Really?
Doris, who is in the film, we filmed for like 4 days at the same time, the same span of. Yes. And then David Brzezinski, I like Googled that, and he's nearby, and Nico Opper. And then another friend was just like, I'm in Nico Opper's like class at Stanford, and introduced me to her, or them, introduced me to them. And then we did that conversation with Nancy, and that was really intriguing. And it was like, okay, this is plenty of content that we got in a tiny span of time.
And you've done we've gotten the ability to look at it. So we're like, oh, I can't wait till everybody gets to see it, because it's beautifully done. I mean,
thanks. And
really,
then, I didn't touch the footage for like a year and a half. Because I couldn't.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know what to do with this. And just like stare at all of it. This is so much. And be like, how is this gonna turn into a timeline that makes any sense? Because there's so much, and there's still so much that I could put on a YouTube channel, and should. But
put it on in a different way. Yeah.
And then I did the Mother's Day screening because I know I'm frustrating everybody, because everybody wants to know where they can see it. And I'm like, I don't know yet, because I wanted it to be our film. Like, I knew I wanted adoptees to see it and then have a chance to be in it, or at least be in the credits. That's the adoptee army. And so I had to release it like privately to adoptees before I knew the distribution plan, which now people are just going to have to bear with me. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I'm working on it.
That was our next question. Like, when does everybody get to see this?
I know. So luckily, because I got an executive producer through this, like letting it get out there more. An adoptee was like, you got to talk to my friend, Jenna Vasquez, who is in the film world. Maybe she can help. And we talked, and she was into the Primal Wound because her friend, the adoptee, it was such a big part of her life. So she champions the cause, even though she's not an adoptee. And she's now the executive producer, which is amazing because she knows that world and how to sell a movie. So that's why I have hope that it can get a wider audience. I always wanted it to get to the general population.
I think it should. I think it will be a huge conversation for so many people that have adopted friends, adopted siblings, their cousins adopted. I mean, I think it should get to the general population.
I hope so.
And it's really, I mean, Nancy's book and Nancy's message and your documentary, it should all get out there.
No, but literally the point being, I don't want it to be about me at all. I think Nancy and the book need more recognition. And if my story and whatever my destiny of putting it together
here's a great thing that happened, Nancy. We, because we discussed your book on the podcast, we got an email the other day
Yeah.
from a woman in South Africa
Yeah.
who works with pregnant women who don't, who are not really ready to be moms, and they help them go through the whole process of helping them get their babies adopted. And she runs a home for those babies while they're in transition. They're anywhere from 6 months old to a year and a half or whatever. So she was Googling things about how to help with these babies and blah, 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 and came across our podcast and your book. And so from there, and then she immediately ordered the book, listened to all of our podcasts, and then
I think she ordered the book for everybody who works there too.
and for all and then turned all the social workers in her.
Yes.
So
people still don't know about it.
Yes, people don't.
Oh, no.
I didn't know about it till 6 months ago or something. Crazy.
Exactly. So that's kind of the point of the film, really, to get the Primal Wound out there more. And also have it, I just love that it's our film and there's so many adoptees connected to the production.
Yes. And you should be highlighted because you've done a beautiful job. I mean, we've seen it, and I'm crying through the whole thing, like how you mixed in, the music and the people. I mean, it's really well done and tastefully done too. So it's not, I feel like anybody on any side of it will get something out of it and not be like anti, you know what I mean? Like,
I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had award-winning investigative journalist Demetria Kaldimos helped me a lot with the storyline, and then Jill has a PhD in rhetoric and helped with the narrative too, like immensely, which is also something that people don't seem to realize sometimes, is that when I say it's adoptee and birth mother produced, I mean my birth mother.
Right.
I just realized that some people think it's just like a random birth mother and me team, but it's
right.
It's actually me and Jill, who is my birth mother.
Right.
So I want to make that more clear.
Oh yeah, and she's so raw in it and brave, and it's just, I think it's going to touch so many people. It's just the whole what is that word, Sarah? Kismet of it coming together.
I love that. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I borrowed that from Sarah. That's Sarah's.
But what I was going to say is that today, Intercountry Adoptee Voices announced 8 screenings. They're private and limited, because Jenna, that's what I was going to say, did give me the green light to do private, like limited screenings. So those are going to start rolling out. And those are global. So there's like 1 in Australia, 2 in the US, Canada, Germany, the Netherlands. I think that's it.
Wow. I'd love to see it on like Netflix.
Yes. That is what we're working on. I know, right? Like, you can just see the show poster on Netflix. But and then Adoption Mosaic is doing a screening in person in Portland, if anyone's there. And then the Cub Retreat, which Nancy, I think you've spoken at the Concerned United Birth Parents conference multiple times, right?
Coventry?
Cub.
Oh, Cub. Yeah. Cub. Yes. They usually invite me to speak at their conferences. Yeah.
They want you to this year too. Did they?
Yeah. If I can talk my
But
kids in the
I know, it's such a weird
airplane.
I know. But that's in LA in October.
Yeah.
October 22nd.
22nd. Okay, I'll put that on my calendar and see what I can do.
And those are all the screenings that are coming up, but hopefully there will be more.
I can't believe there's this whole adopted universe out there that I didn't know a thing about. And I don't know why that is. Like, I just had my head in the sand or something. I
wasn't in it either. I'm new to the community.
Yeah.
No, we're both new. I think how we were raised, Sarah and I, you were just go along with your life, and you have these things, you don't really deal with them. And I
had a lot of other chaos going on.
Yes.
As a direct result of being adopted. And then anyway, other stuff.
Because the Primal Wound has sold thousands of copies.
Yeah.
And so people do know about it. They do know about adoption, but there's so many people that out there that have something to do with adoption, and a lot of people just haven't looked into it, I think. You
I
know?
think that's
Yes.
basically what it is. Like I had a lot of friends. I have a handful of really good friends.
Yeah.
And that I actually connect more to probably than, not always, but very, we have that unspoken commonality. But I
Right.
just didn't, and I would pay a lot of lip service. I went to therapy at 20, and yes, I was adopted. But it was, I didn't connect it emotionally to my intellect. And
Mhm.
until,
Yeah.
then my son was born and finding my birth family and all that stuff. But still, it just feels like it's still a lot of layers. And it's still very, very hard for me to put my walls down. And,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's like a lifetime of work
It's a
is what it
lifetime of
is.
work.
Yeah.
I knew about it because I had a marriage counselor who told me to get the book. And I think I had an aversion to it because I didn't like that she wanted to deal with my marital problems because of my adoption. So I was like,
Right.
whatever. I'm not going to read that book. She's not adopted. What does she know? This is all his problems, right? But, honestly,
Yeah.
the benefits I would have had in my life had I read this earlier are tremendous. And even when Sarah brought it up, I remember thinking, oh gosh, that book, I don't want to get in. I don't want to know because I know I have stuff. That's what it is. It's like we know. But boy, this whole time it was all connected. Had I known that, what the growth I could have had. That's why I hope young people find it early and
Yes.
and
Well, and the
adopted
thing you
mothers find it early.
The thing you have to realize is that it doesn't have anything to do with who you are.
No.
It has to do with what happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, the primal wound's all about coping mechanisms,
yeah.
And the way people cope with losing their first mother and then becoming a member of people they're not related to. I mean, that's not something that people really think about very much.
There was a line in it where you said they're the only victims. Sarah and I really focused on that. The only victims that are supposed to be grateful.
Yes.
Yes.
That was a big line
Mhm.
for me when I read that. It was very powerful. I cried. I read it thinking, wow, I've never looked at it like that.
See, I think people don't realize either what a trauma it is for a little baby to be separated from its mother.
Yeah.
In the first place. I mean, all you have to do is watch Animal Planet.
Right.
And
Right.
see all
Nancy,
those
when you
mommies
talk
and
about this, yes.
all those
I wanted you
mommies
to
and
talk about this.
babies. Yeah, I mean, I was just watching something on TV the other night. I don't know, it was an advertisement for, don't kill all the elephants. And it showed this elephant with its baby and putting its trunk underneath the baby. And, I mean, it just, all mammals need to be with their mommies,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, my father-in-law was just telling a story, like a week ago, because it was his birthday, and he's from Texas and did ag growing up, and he was talking about this. One of his jobs with his uncle was separating the mothers and the calves.
Oh.
And it was so sad, and the cows would just moo and they would cry. And he was talking about how sad it was. He was almost tearing up. I was like, yeah, it's sad. Is it sad to take baby animals away from their mother? And then
Absolutely.
same with like puppies and kittens. It's illegal to separate them.
It's a trauma. It's a
But
trauma
yet
for
it
every
doesn't
single
connect
one.
with human babies.
Right.
Absolutely. It is a trauma. And so every one of you who were separated from your first moms suffered that trauma.
Yeah.
And it's like proven with animals.
Yes.
No one's going to do scientific studies with humans, but
And you notice, I mean, I grew up on a sheep ranch too. And all those baby lambs know exactly who their mothers are, even though they're all running around the field all the time. When it's time to eat, they know where to go. It's like they know who those mothers are and they don't make a mistake.
I think about this because I moved up to an area with a lot of deer. And right now I filmed them for Sarah the other day. There's all these little baby fawns.
Oh, yeah.
And all the deer look, alike to us. So except that one will have a weird thing or something, but all the babies, they're all together. They're all eating. They're all doing something. They all know exactly if their mom moves, they move. The other
Mhm.
moms could all move. If something startles, like 3 of the moms and the babies move, the one baby will wait to see what his mom does or her mom.
That's
And
right.
it's, I, because we're going through this, Sarah and I, everything's more emotional to me right now, of course.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, wow, just watching. It's almost
Yeah.
like my eyes have been opened in my 50s. And I want to thank you for that, because, you know, it's almost emotional seeing you in person, because it's been a journey. Like Sarah and I didn't know what journey we were getting into when we did this. We knew we were doing something special. We had a business before. We knew this was a great thing to do together. But just today we talked to each other. We're like, I love we're doing, like, it's changing us, our lives. It's just really
A lot of other people's lives.
all of other people's lives too. Just these conversations, just the fact that our listeners, you know, 2,000 plus of them that we know about are going to get on and get to see you and Rebecca and know that this documentary is coming out and hear your voice. It's a big thing. It's huge.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really been we interviewed a guy who also has a podcast, and he's an adoptee and an adoptive parent. So we got into this kind of conversation, the 3 of us, and talk. You know, his whole point is, you know, you could take him, you know, as born from a person, and put him in one family or put him in another family, and how different those experiences would have been. But what's so interesting about talking to so many adoptees is like Louise and I, somehow we ended up to get, you know, in the same, running a business together in the exact same place, yet our adoption stories were so different. Mine was totally traumatic, you know, pretty traumatic. Like,
Yeah.
my adoptive parents got divorced, and it was my mom who left when I was 7, and I had 3 younger brothers, and it was a very difficult journey from that point on. And Louise was into this very stable adopted family. And yet somehow, you know, all these years later, we end up together and starting a business and now doing this podcast about adoption. It is.
And we'd sit in our business together and talk about these things where we're connected. If Sarah and I are connected in that way more than other friends I have or other friends she has that aren't adopted, like she said, it's like that instantly we're like, oh, I get it. And you're kind of kinder to each other. Like, I'm kinder to people now. I think, oh, what are their deeper things that they've been, it's interesting to learn all of this.
Yeah. What are their stories? What are
Mhm.
their life been like? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not there. I wanted to out something in your documentary, but I'm not going to because it's in the documentary. But there was a guy in there who talked about searching, and that all adopted kids search, even if you don't search.
Mhm.
Oh, David Brzezinski. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't want to out that but it really struck me. I was like, that is because, you know, people, because I didn't search. My biological family found me, but you do search. My whole life, I look at the park and you scan and you.
The ruminating.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that part. Yeah, I think I put a lot in that. I was like, whoa, people need to hear that. Those are the gems that with all this footage, it was like, there were a lot of gems that you don't hear enough.
Yeah.
That I hope people listen to. Because it's like another thing that came to me recently, just being on the Instagram algorithm, you know, adoption algorithm, which I'm new to also. But
yeah,
it was like, I don't know. We're the only group of people, marginalized people, that the government has condoned gaslighting is okay.
Yes.
Oh,
You
we
know?
got it. We
don't
talked
even get
about
to
that.
yeah,
too.
not even don't even get to see our own birth certificates and
Just lying and secrets, and
yeah.
it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Boy, there was a great documentary about this called 3 Identical Strangers.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, that was great.
Wow. Yeah.
That blew my mind. I need to
Me
watch
too.
it again.
Yeah, our last guest, Mick, actually, that's how we found him, was on comments where he had written that he couldn't get his birth certificate. You know, he's an older man.
Wrong. Just
Yeah.
wrong. Everybody needs to know who they're related to,
Yes.
because you may have a very nice family, but maybe you're not related to any of them.
You're like, how is
And-
this a thing? Like non-negotiable.
I
Well, I think it should be non-negotiable. I think it should be that everyone has a right to know their ancestry.
Yeah.
And your ancestry isn't, something that's written on a piece of paper.
right.
It's within you. It's your DNA. It's all of that. And maybe now that people are more aware of DNA and everybody's looking up their genetic this and that, maybe it'll be easier. I mean, I can't even believe the number of states where you can't get your original birth certificate.
I know.
I mean, I think that's just
Yeah.
terrible.
I'm in one of those states.
Yeah. Well, and I have several friends, but one friend in particular who has two adopted children from different situations. And does not want to be on our podcast, but she's very open with her kids about
Mhm.
their backgrounds and if they want to know anything. And she knew one of the mothers that had to help her through her pregnancy and different things. And her kids are very well adjusted for it. And it's a nice conversation because they have no mistake. She's their mom.
Right.
She's not threatened by these other people in their lives. She's happy if they want to get to know them. It's up to them.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice that it's turning that way, that it's,
Oh,
and
I
it
think
wasn't
it's
our mom's, it's not their doing. That's how it was rigged, right? The game was rigged like that.
That's right. The only
So-
I found out my daughter's birth mother's name by going down to the county courthouse because she came to California to have the baby, and in that county, and that's how I found out her name.
Yeah.
And that's how I could trace her at some point, and but otherwise they don't put that on the birth
No.
certificate or anything, and they keep it. Everybody wants to keep secrets. I don't know
Yep.
why. I don't know why. Secrets are, if it has to be a secret, there's no reason for things like that to be secret. But
Secrets are never good. I mean,
It's our other guest who has his podcast, we talked about, adoption is going to stay. It's not leaving. It's
No.
going, this is always going to be. So now we just have to figure out that, getting these voices out there and so that people can understand the damage and to maybe start another cycle of, different generation.
conversation.
Yeah.
Because we all know adoptees who are part of that 40%
Uh,
like in rehab and
That was,
Oh.
well, I wasn't in rehab, but I was
Yeah.
juvenile hall for sure and ran away.
that we all
we
know
do.
very young adoptees now who are like babies and 4 in our families. And that's
Yeah.
why I made this documentary. Like I'm fighting for them,
Mm-hmm.
fighting for my cousins. And yeah.
I had
Oh,
a friend
needs to
tell
be-
me that she
there
was
needs to be
shocked
more
at that.
yeah, there needs to be more transparency so that they don't have
Yes.
to figure it all out for themselves or think it's some big secret that they can't know. Just put it out there.
And honestly, I think 60% of the population is touched by adoption in some
Yeah.
way.
Wow.
I found that. And then if you think about it, it's true. Like your biological, your siblings, weren't adopted, but they have, not your biological, your
Your-
siblings
That your
weren't,
siblings
that
you're
weren't
raised with.
biological are touched by it.
Oh yeah, it trickles
Because
down. I
you're
mean,
adopted.
everybody. Yeah.
I remember when my younger daughter, my biological daughter, met my adopted daughter's sister,
Oh,
because we were all going to go to Cirque du Soleil. I was taking them all to Cirque du Soleil. So there was
Oh,
my
fun.
daughter, my 2 daughters, and my adopted daughter's sister. And so my younger daughter. So we were all going to Cirque du Soleil. And so my younger daughter is 5'2" and my adopted daughter is 5'10". So she was wondering, okay, is her sister going to be 5'10" like her? Because she always wanted to be more like 5'10" than 5'2". But so when we all met together, No, her sister was more like 5'2" or 3. My tall daughter's sister. And but she had the same personality as my older daughter. And so we just kind of had to laugh, about these kinds of things. And it was so my younger daughter looked more like, in size, more like her sister's sister.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it was. So
Well,
evidently she had a different mother or a different father.
It's the thing too, when my biological cousins were coming to my wedding, my brother was just happy. He literally said to me, "I'm just glad you have no siblings because I'm your brother." And that was that. And that's that. And I was thinking, well, I don't know the other side, my biological dad's side, where there's seven uncles and whatever, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
So there could be a whole, but I didn't say that to him. I was like, yep. And he was like, that was his thing. As long as I have that role, I'll meet anybody. And I thought, well, that's interesting because maybe he did feel that way, like very protective, or what's his role then?
Possessive, it sounds like. Doesn't sound
possessive, or
protective,
does
that sounds possessive.
Or it diminishes. Maybe it would diminish him as my brother if there was another sibling. It's that fear.
But it's also that weird, that guilt that some adoptive
Yes.
families can put on the adoptee, so which then prevents you from maybe going to look.
Yes.
So it's
in your head. It's the
and
whole
that
thing
needs
in there.
to change too. Like it's not a threat to
That's
you.
what I say.
If
yes.
I go look and want to know who I am, that is not
Yeah.
a threat to you. But I think it can be stifling for adoptees. So that's why having these conversations is good.
It sure is.
Yeah, I think that truth is good.
Yes.
And secrets are not so good. So yeah. And everybody can deal with it because I remember when my younger daughter was thinking, well, when we see my sister's biological sister, what does that make me, kind of thing, but she realized right away that
no, because once it's out there, people are just those dynamics don't change. My mom will always be my mom. My brother will always be my brother. And so then you just have more people in your life.
Yeah,
that's really what it
family.
becomes. Yeah.
More people to love. That's what I
More
always
people
say.
to love.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And it took me a long time to figure this out. And this is helping. Even just the book, like Sarah said, to have had this years ago would have been just, but I guess we find it when we're supposed to find it, maybe.
Yeah.
When did that come out? 1993, I think.
Yeah, I probably wasn't prepared in 93 to hear any of this. Looking at that year.
It's real. I think that's a real thing.
Yeah, I do too. Well, we can't wait for this documentary.
I know. Well, you'll have to keep us posted because
Yes.
I was hoping for your sake that by the time we aired, you would we'd be able to say, go see it here, but soon you will.
Yeah. And maybe we can do an addition, a little
voice
memo.
that'd be wonderful.
Yeah. If that.
And we can put we can put the trailer out there.
Yes. Can we do that?
Please.
Okay,
totally.
good.
Yeah. That's out there. And then there are screenings on the website. If any of those make sense for people, and hopefully we'll be adding more as they happen. So
hopefully we can all meet in person one day.
Please. I know.
That'd be nice.
That would be nice. I left California a year ago. Very strange to leave California.
And I'm in Central California, Central Coast area now. So I told Sarah, if she comes out to visit me, we'll go north and come see her.
I'm going to be in San Francisco the second week of January. And Jenna and I were talking about doing a screening there because Nancy, and Doris, just having that crew do a screening.
I would go.
Okay. In San Francisco.
Sarah
or
can
Oakland.
fly out and I'll drive us up. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Nancy,
so
would you come? Would you let
Nancy will to the
Nancy.
Well, we have to make our daughters let her get on the plane.
Well,
no, she lives in Northern California.
Oh yeah, you live in North. That's right.
An hour and a half.
I live like a half an hour from San Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm
Perfect.
saying.
Well,
It can
depending on the
happen, y'all.
traffic.
It's gonna happen soon.
Rebecca, where do you live?
I live in Ithaca, New York now.
Oh, you're in Ithaca. Okay. I keep thinking I eventually want to live in upstate New York or Hudson Valley, but
I think we're all gonna have to with climate change. That's
Yes,
the only
but I
thing
just
I'm like, this is a good place to be.
I'm biologically from New York anyway. So that's what,
Awesome.
in fact, my birth mother and I in
Yes.
1990, way before I met her, 7 years, lived across the street from each other in
Stop.
the East Village on 6th Street
Oh my gosh.
between A and B, across
that's
the
too
street
much.
from each other.
That
I know.
Probably
Wow.
passing each other on the street.
that's the fantasy, but that's really happened to you. I've never heard it.
Yes, right across the street on 6th Street
My gosh.
between A and B.
I just got chills.
Yeah.
That's-
And
Yeah.
Oh,
their lives were intersecting and they didn't even know it. I mean, it's crazy.
And
So
she was
powerful.
also, my birth mother was also adopted. So that can,
Oh yeah, I think you mentioned that. Yes, the generational trauma.
yes.
That's a whole nother
Yeah.
podcast. That is interesting.
That
though.
is.
Yeah.
I know, and I want to do like an episodic series. Also.
So do we.
Yeah,
like,
we did
Let's
too.
do. Maybe that's Netflix. Maybe we're all supposed to work together.
Yeah, let's
A
talk about that
Netflix
because
series.
we've been talking about this too. So
This is
Okay.
something we discuss all the
Let's-
time. Yeah.
let's
Really?
yes, all the time. Yeah. That's up my next the next manifestation.
Yep. We've been
Well, y'all
saying
are
it to
good
each
at
other.
that, so
Yeah.
Yes.
See, we'll manifest and you're good at what you do and we'll get it done.
let's
Yeah.
do it. This is amazing. Y'all are the best.
This
All
is
right.
amazing.
You guys, it's been so great. And Nancy, thank you for your work. Really.
Thank you so
It's
much.
just-
thank you, ladies. My goodness.
Thank you.
I really
And
appreciate what you've been doing.
well, thank
So
you.
glad. And we'll
Wait.
see you in January.
Yes, I'm
Yes.
putting that. We'll manifest January.
Yes.
Definitely that could happen.
Send me the address, the date, exact date.
Me
Yeah.
too. Send it to us, Rebecca, and we're going to make it
I will.
happen.
Okay.
Text it, yeah.
Okay. And then we'll
Email
connect.
it.
We'll connect with you about manifesting our
Yes,
show.
yes. Okay.
So exciting.
Okay. All right. Bye, ladies.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.